Secretary Gates came to Turkey while I was, I believe, in 2007, and he was shocked when I told him he was the first Secretary of State to visit Turkey in 6 years. Just found this astonishing. Gates and Panetta have repeatedly visited Turkey. Our Secretary Clinton, Secretary Rice, I think, came twice in my time. Secretary Clinton has been to Turkey a number of times. USTR Ron Kirk and Acting Commerce Secretary Blank are there now, but a whole range of other things, Assistant Secretary for the Middle East, Assistant Secretary for Counterterrorism Matters, for Economic and Business, so on and so on and so on, a whole lot of things going on that I think gives a different kind of fabric to our relationship. And then last here, I think Turkish leaders came to value somewhat more than they did earlier in this decade or in previous decades, the value of a close relationship with the United States, that their success, and here I would apply this to the present government, that their success regionally depended in some significant measure on having a good relationship with the United States. What can go wrong? Well, there's lots, and I'm sure some of that's been talked about in portions of this that I missed, but just to identify a few things. One is, whatever happens in our presidential election, there will almost certainly be very significant personnel changes throughout the hierarchy of people, particularly civilian officials, leave aside the US military, civilian officials who deal with Turkey. And I say that even if President Obama is reelected, follow the pattern in 2008, or 2005. A whole series of appointments, undersecretaries, assistant secretaries, new Secretary of State in all likelihood, that will introduce at least some personal discontinuities that are going to have to be stitched back together. Obviously, much more the case if Governor Romney wins election. Second, a second thing that can go wrong, I think there's a whole series of things that can blow up. What happens if Armenia and Azerbaijan go to war? Which could happen. I wouldn't exclude it. What happens maybe somewhat, in a somewhat less dire way, if Russia invades Georgia again? 2008, a tough year in US-Turkish relations. Turkey all of a sudden looking like it was on the front lines of a re-emerging, a redeveloping Cold War, and not very comfortable with that. Several scenarios you can imagine in the Caucasus that are difficult or complicated. What happens if Israel or Israel and the United States or the United States alone strike Iran? Big problem. And a conference a year from now or a year after that takes place that's talking about Turkey, US-Turkish relations, is going to have a whole different tenor, I would submit. Differences may well emerge over Syria. Differences may well emerge or worsen over Turkey's relationship with Israel. There are a whole series of things that can go really, I think, very, very wrong. The EU piece may come back together, and that may change at some point Turkey's calculations or the calculations of Turkish leaders about where they need to make investments of time. We all work on 24 hours a day, but there's only 24 of them, and so if you're going to spend more time with the EU, you're going to, almost by definition, be spending somewhat less time on other matters, and I think that can be a factor. And then there's a problem that I think Ambassador Pearson at least implicitly referred to, which is the problem of expectations. And there is an expectation now that our relations are great, and they'll continue to be great, and it will go on, and everything will be wonderful. Our relations only got to be better because of concerted efforts by a whole lot of very senior people in the United States and Turkish governments to put it right. What takes a long time to get right can be broken very quickly, perhaps either intentionally or unintentionally. And I think for our relationship to succeed, it will continue to require a very sustained effort whose nature and sustainability may get to be more complicated after November 2012. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ross. And I'd like to ask now former Foreign Minister Yaşar Yakış, please, to address us.
Thank you very much. I have the advantage of being the last speaker, so almost everything has been said. I may perhaps dwell on certain questions which was not properly covered or where further explanation may be needed. On the Turkish-American relations, there is a saying that in the international relations, America always does the right thing, but after having tested all the other options. And the distinguished ambassadors who are here, who served in Ankara, in certain periods of their tenure there, United States was trying the other options. So I know that it was a very difficult task, but being very brilliant and talentful diplomats, they served Turkish-American relations in an excellent manner. And if Turkish-American relations continue to improve and arrive at the point, the level that it has reached so far, it is thanks to their efforts and the very untiring efforts that they have done during their service in Ankara. I'm very grateful to them. I worked with both of them, with Ambassador Pearson when I was minister, and with Mr. Ambassador Wilson when I was chairman of the EU committee in the Turkish parliament, so our friendship continued. Is there anything left to be done in the Turkish-American relations? Yes, of course, a lot of things in between two countries which have so many diversified interests. On the bilateral level, economic, political, cultural, and other levels, and also at the regional level. I will not say international level because Turkey is not yet at the point where it could assume global roles, global actors' roles. I regard Turkey as a country which is striving to assume regional responsibilities, and it has covered a long distance in this direction. But of course, it has to compete with countries like Iran, which is actually poised, when you look at them from the Iranian side, to become a nuclear power. And Egypt now, having gone through this turmoil, is also gaining its own identity with the military maintaining certain roles, etc. But Egypt is going to remain a very important country in the region. So Turkey has to compete with Iran and Egypt to become an important actor in the region. And it has advantages, it has disadvantages. So Turkey perhaps can cooperate with the United States for the regional roles, for the American vested interest in the Middle East, in the Caucasus, in certain parts of the Balkans, and in Central Asia, where Turkey has some sort of presence. On the specific subject of Iran, Turkey thought that it would be a good contribution if it tries to take an initiative regarding slowing down or regarding taking under the control of the nuclear uranium enrichment program in Iran by volunteering to mediate that the Iranians should stop or suspend the uranium enrichment program. At that time, they were at the level of 3.5%, most probably. And they were going to stop this. They were going to enrich uranium rods to a country, Turkey or other country. And the Vienna Club countries were going to provide uranium rods enriched up to 18 to 21%, which is necessary for scientific purposes and for medical purposes. And Turkey took this initiative in cooperation with the United States. And when Turkey achieved or to persuade it, was able to persuade Iran to do it, then America at that time thought that it would be more appropriate not to go along with this program or with this initiative and to impose sanctions on Iran and to pass a resolution in the United Nations Security Council. So Turkey was left out in the middle of nowhere. Well, the time proved that Turkey's initiative could have been utilized as a good opportunity. How did we see it? Later on, several years later, when this initiative came to the agenda again, by that time, Iran had already reached the enrichment program up to 20-21%. So at that time, when it was at the level of 3 or 4%, the West had something to offer to Iran in exchange of stopping there. Now that Iran has already reached 21% enrichment, the West is deprived now of any concession that it could make to Iran. So the proposal that was made by Turkey was a good opportunity that was missed. Of course, we should not assess the relations between two countries like Turkey and the United States on the specific issues like this. This is only one example which was not elaborated in this forum, so I wanted to give my perception of it. There may be details where I may be wrong, perhaps during the discussions and question and answer periods, if there are questions on this subject. Those who are more knowledgeable than me perhaps may contribute with their knowledge. This is regarding Iran. Turkey is, of course, the last country to see a benefit in Iran becoming a nuclear power. Why? Because it will upset the balance in the Middle East to the detriment of Turkey and in favor of Iran. The balance which was established since 1920s when the Ottomans withdrew from the Middle East, there was a balance of power between Iran, Turkey, and other countries. Now, especially after the withdrawal of the United States from Iraq, and with Iranians filling this vacuum in Iraq, plus if there is, if this nuclear program continues like this, and Iran becoming a nuclear power, or a candidate to become a nuclear power, then the balance will not continue to be there any longer. And if the regime in Syria is maintained thanks to the Russian and the Iranian support, then of course this balance will be changed more in favor of Iran again, because Iranian political influence will expand all the way from Iran to the Mediterranean. At present, the only missing link for Iran to expand its influence to the Mediterranean is Syria. They have already a presence in Iraq and in Lebanon through Hezbollah. So the missing link is Syria, and to maintain the Syrian regime in place is very much important for Iran. It's a strategic goal.